Activist groups conducted protests against the Trump administration in over 50 states this weekend. Yes, all 50 states. The groups behind these protests sent out emails that Redacted has seen telling people exactly where to go, what to bring, what to do. According to the organizers, a group called Hands Off is a, quote, nationwide mobilization to stop the most brazen power grab in modern history. Have you ever heard of FDR? I wonder, have you ever actually studied FDR?
Ever heard of the CARES Act?
Right. Ever heard of, I don't know, the Patriot Act? Okay, but cool. But yes, their major problem is Elon Musk and Trump. So what exactly are they grabbing? I don't think they even know. Sometimes it just feels good to get worked up and go someplace and scream with a poster, right? Certainly, they don't actually always know. Here's a typical protester response when people say, yeah, what do you stand for?
They gave me the sign. It's a free sign.
Oh, someone gave you the sign,
Yeah.
and then they gave you the handout.
Yeah.
So are you reading it now to try to answer the question?
Yeah, but I mean...
Can I see that? Can you hold that up?
I'm just not...
I'm just curious.
You can have it.
I can have it?
Yeah, you can have it.
Alrighty. So where did you get the sign?
All the way in the gatekeeper's house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just pretty cool.
And that's...
That's crazy. So they just handed out the signs. Here's the flyers. Here's your talking points. It's like they're prepping Kamala Harris for a debate.
Yeah.
Here's your talking points, right?
Well, Richie McGinnis was at the protest. He's the author of Riot Diet, One Man's Radical Ride Through America in Chaos. So he knows that of which he speaks, and he joins us to tell us, what did you see this weekend? What is the major motivating force to go out in this cold spring weekend?
Well, this was a huge protest, and it was possibly the biggest protest, at least in D.C., since Trump came into office. And it was actually a number of different causes that were out there. So there were protesters out there on behalf of the Palestinian cause. And then actually the biggest protest was underneath the Washington Monument, which was anti-Doge, anti-Trump, this hands-off protest that you're talking about. And I mean, it's a very mixed bag, but overwhelmingly what I've noticed, the difference between this and BLM is that the protesters are much older in age than your average BLM protester. And also, I guess you could say less ethnically diverse, given that I'm in Washington, D.C., which is a largely black city, not quite majority anymore, but it certainly wasn't majority black or anywhere near that when I was out there this weekend.
Isn't that so funny? Because the anti-BLM protesters were largely older white people.
Yeah.
And liberals took to the internet to make fun of older white people. Like, oh, it's just them. They're uncool. They're past their generation. It's very ageist. Like, we don't want to hear from them. But now they represent the liberal talking point. So how the tides have changed. But where are the young people? They're just sitting this one out?
I think a lot of the young people are just tired of the 8-year 5-alarm fire that's been going on with, Orange Man Bad. The one thing I did notice at these most recent protests, especially this weekend, is that during BLM, the most galvanizing thing was, what do you guys think about Trump? F Trump. But now at the most recent protests in DC, it's Elon Musk who's actually the primary subject of their ire. And when you look around at the signs, they're mostly anti-Doge and anti-Elon signs. Obviously, there's a fair number of Trump ones as well. But Elon has really become kind of public enemy number one. And I think that's partially because of the fact that the left-wing media has been, screaming about Trump and how he's Hitler for 8 years. But at a certain point, I think that has diminishing returns.
So who's funding these protests? Because we at Redacted actually received these emails that were sent out this weekend, calling on people to show up. So I've seen these emails that went out to people and the organizing, telling them what to dress like, what to, where to go and how to get your signs and all of those sorts of things. Seems highly coordinated, and it seems like they're really threatened by something. What could Doge be doing that would threaten their livelihood?
Well, if you look at the funding of the protests, and most, it's a lot less sexy than, these protesters were all paid to go out there. I think the overwhelming majority of people, if you build it, they will come, is what I often say. So there's definitely a lot of money that's required to start these protests, to print all the signs, to provide people with reimbursement, not necessarily payment, but they're paying for their transportation. They're giving them the signs. They're telling them where to go. Like you said, these huge email lists. And if you look at where the funding is coming from, the hands-off protests that we saw around the country and we've seen over the last couple of weeks at a lot of Tesla dealerships and whatnot, those last year in 2023, they Indivisible, which is one of the largest contributors to Hands Off, got $3 million from the Open Society Foundation. So that's obviously George Soros's foundation. And he also funded a lot of the protests that we saw in 2020, like when I was on the other side of the fence outside the federal courthouse, where they were lighting fires and agitating police. You know, that was a smaller portion of the BLM protesters that would come out on a given night. There'd be 5,000 people and 500 would be smashing into the fence. But the most extreme protesters would get arrested, and I would see them get bailed out and come back out the very next night. So the Open Society Foundation is definitely funding a lot of this.
George Soros.
It's a variety of groups,
Society,
and a lot of like local DNC chapters are funding these smaller protests that you see in all these smaller towns around Tesla dealerships and stuff like that.
Is there anything productive that you think is a common thread that people actually want? Or is it a mob mentality? There's a joke in Europe that if you just throw a few coins in any dirty puddle, Americans will be like, ooh, that must be for luck, and start throwing their money too. And so do you think that this is mob mentality, or is there anything productive that we could learn from it?
Well, what's interesting to me, I've been in DC since 2008. Obviously, Barack Obama, that's when he won, and he was inaugurated in 2009. And what's very surprising to me as far as asking people questions out on the ground is, like I said, the galvanizing factor is that they're anti-Trump or anti-Elon. But when you actually ask, hey, are you on the side of cutting government waste, fraud, and abuse? You know, I've read Obama quotes to some of these protesters, him talking about waste, fraud, and abuse and how we need to eliminate it. Bill Clinton quotes, and they disagree with the statement, thinking that it comes from Trump, until I reveal that it came from their hero, Barack Obama. So that just illuminates the way in which the paradigm is shifting in the political landscape, where, you know, I came to DC in 2008 as pro-free speech and anti-war, and that made me anti-George Bush, which put me on the left wing. But now those stances, I guess, I don't know. I guess that puts me, I don't know where that puts me. But I think, you know, a lot of people just go where they're told to be. They're not thinking about this critically. They're not sticking to any principles. It's just, you know, orange man bad.
It is totally like money in a dirty puddle. Like just,
money in a dirty puddle is exactly. And it doesn't take, you know, it doesn't, I think people think that everybody needs to be paid to come out to these protests. And really, I mean, people are so apoplectic about politics these days that all that's required is for the venue to get secured, for the signs to be printed, for transportation to be secured, for if people are coming from longer distances, and they'll come. So, you know, our country is divided basically half and half right now. And so it's not really hard to find people who are willing to come out. And I think the older audience also indicates, you know, a lot of these people have money in their 401k. They don't like the uncertainty in the stock market. And also, you know, there are a lot of government workers in DC, and these are all older folks who work for the government or still work for the government and feel threatened by Trump, you know, like a bull in a china shop, cutting programs.
Yeah, or they've just recently lost their jobs at USAID, or these other programs that Doge. Yeah, did you talk to any of those types of people that lost their jobs, like at USAID or these other government positions? Yeah,
to which my question is, well, if somebody offered me 9 months of pay to leave my job, I would be out there in a second, you know, because what can you do with 9 months of pay? If you can't find another job after 9 months of getting paid, then you probably weren't doing
your skills then?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or start a business. I mean, 9 months, for crying out loud.
God forbid.
You know, I've seen people who, you know, are like planning on leaving a company and they need like 3 months of a runway, you know, just to get that business launched. They have an idea. 9 months. And now this is what they're spending their time doing, though, going to organize protests against Doge. Richie, thank you so much. What is the name of your book again? Can we put it up here on the screen? Riot Diet.
Riot Diet.
One man's radical ride through America in chaos. I'm just curious. I haven't read this book yet. Can you tell us about the book?
Well, it starts with the pandemic, and then I was in DC for the first weekend of protests and rioting during the infamous Trump St. John's Church Bible photo op. But then me and my little riot squad, we traveled to Portland, Seattle, New York, Minneapolis, Wauwatosa. I was in Kenosha, Wisconsin for the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting, and I was both the named victim and a witness in that case. And so it takes readers through the quote unquote summer of love. And I was just on the ground with my cell phone recording interviews. And it really gives readers a front row seat to what really happened on the ground rather than the kind of dueling narratives that were coming out of these protest zones.
Do you see any similarities? I'll get you out of here on this, Richie. Do you see any similarities with like the violence that's been taking place against like Tesla dealerships and Teslas and what you witnessed that summer?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the last time that I saw that many burning cars was in Kenosha. And I think there's a lot of pent up anger, even, obviously the pandemic supercharged things back then, but that simmering anger over Trump is obviously still palpable. I was at January 6th as well. I covered that, and that's in the second book. But, I think both sides are very animated, but the left does have a tendency to be much better at organizing these kinds of protests around the country. I mean, you look at the scale of last weekend, and it's really unprecedented as far as what the right can bring to the table. I mean, the Tea Party might have been a similar example, but that's about the closest thing.
Richie McGinnis, great to
thank you
have
for your
you here.
perspective.
I love the on the boots on the ground.
Skateboard shoes on the ground.
Skateboard shoes on the ground, talking to these protesters. It's amazing. I think that's fascinating. Richie, great to see you. Thank you so much for your work.
Thanks for having me.